It's like the stepchild of green energy. Everyone's talking about solar panels, talking about wind, but they miss this very important and powerful way to turn waste into energy. Hey, this is Justin Hitt with Commercial Electrical Profits. If you're not already investing in this opportunity to convert waste into energy, you're missing out on what already works very well on a global scale. Already, some countries turn their sorted trash waste into energy, and they do it with zero carbon emissions. And many, many more countries use methane digestion to turn sewage treatment into electricity. Now, this isn't a huge producer of electricity, but it turned out neither was solar or wind, but it's a very easy way to retrofit aged sewage treatment plants. In fact, it's such an opportunity. I'm putting together a joint venture program to market specific cities that we know have sewage treatment problems. But here's the bigger point. Don't focus only on what is popular. Yes, it's top of mind of your prospects. But in the case of sewage treatment plants, they all roll up under a municipality commission or a utility commission, and it's very easy to determine who the decision makers are. So in today's podcast, I'm going to cover a methodology for approaching this type of contract and getting more of these contracts. So if you're already doing sewage treatment plant conversions, adding methane digesters, adding grid-based power systems, adding solar panels over top of the digestion tanks or solar panels over top of the lagoons. These are many different ways to turn what is often a low dollar value land that's around that sewage treatment plant into a highly profitable and beneficial means of energy production. Now, here's what's important. The energy produced from a sewage treatment plant will not run a whole town. It'll essentially run the sewage treatment plant itself. That's what you can guarantee to a customer. If we use methane digestion and we have a moderate-sized city or a rural town, we will produce enough electricity to pay for the electricity for the building itself. Now, sometimes that's different with cattle operations and other places, but the key is we're not going to overpromise because we know what we can deliver. The important factor, though, is establishing that relationship to convert aged-out systems into more modern and efficient systems. And what's powerful about the methane digestion is that you can actually add your tanks and resources ahead of aging lagoon systems. So if the city residents are tired of smelling methane gas and they don't really know what it is, they're just the sewage treatment plant stinks, the landfill stinks, you can actually build a methane digestive system on top of existing infrastructure or ahead of existing infrastructure when you're thinking about the sewage flow. So this is important to understand when it comes to pitching decision makers. Next, you want to look at how decisions are made. Right now, decisions are made at a municipality level with some kind of utility commission approval, and that's because there are federal and state funds available to modernize sewage treatment plants. Not only are there state and federal funds available to do solar systems and wind power systems, but the sewage treatment ones tend to be bound in some kind of waste management proposal. What's a benefit here for the commercial electrical contractor is introducing the concept that we can kill two birds with one stone. And this is especially important with small towns that own both the electrical generation and the sewage treatment, because they'll understand the concept that if they can remove some pressure on their electrical generation, they can expand their overall system and possibly use money from sewage treatment to handle electrical infrastructure or electrical infrastructure to handle sewage treatment. So essentially, this approach gets your customer money. They may not have money today, but you're going to introduce an innovative way for them to get money for their project. We've covered what's the problem and where is the problem. We've also covered how are they going to pay to solve the problem. Now, here's the most valuable part. Most of the time when a city county commissioner or a local municipality decides to upgrade a sewage treatment plant, they have a lot of public forums and they have a lot of discussion, and usually nothing gets done. They might pay a couple consultants to do feasibility studies, and usually these are their brother-in-laws or their cousin, sister's, uncle's brother, and it just nothing happens. And that's the nature of politics. Except when there is a public outrage and the local public wants a change right now. Because what influences political figures is their ability to get reelected. So in the case of my joint venture, it's kind of a consortium. We persuade public opinion. Public opinion then shifts to understanding that not just solar, not just electric in the sense of wind power, but also methane digestion. Think about it. What negative things can you say about methane digestion, especially if the general population understands that smell they're smelling from the sewage treatment plant came out the ass of other people in their community? We explained that it's methane. We don't use that language, but the point I'm making, to be dramatic, is the use of public relations, the use of direct mail campaigns, the use of educational presentations is usually not the first choice of electrical contractors. First off, it requires a little bit of overhead. It requires somebody to manage the campaigns, somebody to put things online, and they're okay with just taking a picture and tweeting it. The truth of the matter is, though, this kind of campaign is worth it because a conversion for a sewage treatment plant can be $1 million. It could be $2 million. It can make or break a company, but it is often something that a single electrical contractor cannot do on their own. They often need specialized services. They often need organizations to support them. So it is a coordinated effort that isn't going to happen naturally. There isn't going to be one county commissioner that says, you know what, I'm tired of smelling the sewage treatment plant. I think we should look into some options. And by the way, could the sewage treatment plant produce electricity for our city? Could it produce enough electricity to pay for the sewage treatment plant? Now, if you've ever installed one of these systems, you know as a fact that the sewage treatment plant can produce its own electricity and enough for a few houses. It's not going to, run the whole town, but it'll run a few houses. But there are additional income streams available. So you have the cost reduction of powering its own system. You have the income streams of selling off the solid waste, which is very common practice. It's usually sold into agricultural systems. There's the opportunity of income to have cleaner and healthier water leave the sewage treatment plant. And we can often quantify that with pharmaceutical testing and other types of water quality testing. So while that's not a direct monetary value, even though the city can very often put in a spiff on the utility users, it is a means for generating savings or revenue. We also have the fact that, again, these sewage treatment plants are in not so good land areas. They're often, now in my neighborhood, they put a sewage treatment plant right next to a country club. I don't know why they did that, but usually the land around a sewage treatment plant is empty. It's barren. There's nothing built over top of it. It's just out in the middle of nowhere. It's usually at the bottom of the hill. And what this gives you is the opportunity then to go from sewage treatment to solar panels, or sewage treatment to other types of hydroelectric services. Now, here's what's important. The contractor that locks in this deal becomes the brother-in-law, becomes the cousin, becomes the contractor they always work with. So the next time the city needs a solution, because you approach them and you were consultative and you help them understand and lobby even the concept of doing it, maybe even help them get the federal and state funds, they understand that you're the company to turn to. Now, this is strategic relations demonstrated. You find a major problem and you find the conditions in which the problem exists. You go and find the decision makers and the people who influence the decision makers. That's business to business marketing. You approach them in a variety of ways using what I call direct response. You're measuring everything that you're sending so you know what works and what doesn't. And then finally, you offer them a consultative solution because they've come to you to ask them to solve a problem. Now, since you define the characteristics of the problem, you can offer them a variety of solutions within, best practices. And you do so in a consistent and regimented way so that you can reach the maximum audience possible. Because here's the point. If you go ahead and convert all the sewage treatment plants, you're doing one a year, two a year, you get a good backlog, you're going to run out of sewage treatment plants to work on. So again, you got to think of that what's next. And that what's next is service contracts on the facilities. All these facilities will have an electrician on site, even if they don't have waste to energy systems in place. And very often you're going to have some kind of next step, which could be solar panels over the basins, for example. Now, there's challenges with some of these things. So you may have a property that has clear space next to it. You may have property that is They go from methane digestion to an expansion of the system for increased capacity. This becomes a customer for life. But there's one thing that has not been covered here that I'm going to do in our little consortium because it is so immensely powerful. And that's the public relations value. Right now, everybody's talking about climate change. And whether you believe climate change exists or it doesn't exist, we can all agree that if we're able to increase the efficiency of a sewage treatment plant to produce better and cleaner water, that means the discharge from the sewage treatment plant is cleaner than the original water that was coming out of people's sinks, that the water doesn't contain pharmaceuticals. It doesn't contain other things outside of what's the EPA allowed. In fact, I would like to see the plant produce something better than what the EPA allows, and that becomes a marketing point for the municipality. It becomes a marketing point for that local region, and you can almost stimulate a population increase of that city, which would guarantee a capacity change for the sewage treatment plant. Now listen carefully. This is advanced strategic relations. You modernize a sewage treatment plant. You work with the customer and you say, hey, look, this is going to work for their current capacity. Let's forecast capacity and get built into that. But what are you going to do next? Your city grows, you get some more industry, and now your sewage treatment plant handles 10x the volume of waste. What are you going to do? Are you 80% capacity, 100% capacity? Well, let's install some control systems to measure these kinds of things. If you've got solar panels on site, do you have enough power to feed a utility? Well, what if you had enough power to feed the utility? What's the cost benefit there? And see, this is what the value I bring as a business analyst. See, a lot of electrical guys are just running cables and they think they're electrical guys. No, you've got to be a solutions provider. So what I'm bringing to the table is that consultative approach that helps your customer get a comprehensive plan for their sewage treatment, for their electrical generation, for their overall capacity as a city to make their city more attractive, to make it safer for the residents, and to make it safer for the environment as well. This is a powerful approach that, yes, it does require a little bit more thinking up front. I would always have you have a marketing plan. For example, I've been writing copy for this joint venture. And you really do need to send out letters on a regular basis, have a newsletter, have something come in. When the county commissioners decide to hire somebody for a study, you can't hire just anybody for a study. They got to hire somebody within the consortium because the people in the consortium understand this value add. They've demonstrated this value add. They've established and built a relationship. And what's going to end up happening is you're probably going to put in $10,000 to $20,000 per city in just your marketing effort. You might be thinking, oh my God, Justin, that's a lot of money. Well, over a 5-year period at $20,000 to get $1 million contract is really not that much money. And in fact, many of these cities are just begging for someone to come along that knows what the hell they're doing to come in and help them solve the problem of the sewage treatment plant. Nobody wants to move into a city that has a sewage treatment plant down the street. And when they do, in fact, in Waldorf, Maryland, where I grew up, there's a sewage treatment plant. And what they did with the plant is they cleaned it up, it reduced the smells, it boosted property values. Increased property values means more money for the schools. It also means the politicians can give themselves a raise. But ultimately what happens is you could tell the story and help them understand how this one thing, considering the lesser known of the green energy solutions, the stepbrother of green energy, methane digestion or waste to energy systems, that they can convert an aged out sewage treatment plant into electrical generation that feeds their city. Now they've got another talking point about why people should move there. When people move there, they don't have to smell the methane gas coming off the sewage treatment plant. They have a better environment around the plant. In fact, you can allow homes to encroach on the plant, which would increase property values. There's all these things that come up that they drive forward. And by the way, that encroachment is only possible because of the study that you've provided to them that helps them understand what their capacity needs might be and what kind of land they need to reserve. But this is all value add. In fact, you could get a $65,000, and I'm giving you practical examples, a $65,000 consulting assignment to do an assessment. It depends on the city, though. It could lock you out of doing the actual work. But you could get paid for the assessment. You could get paid for the work. You could get paid for a service contract. You can get paid until you're gone, long, and retired with this kind of approach. Now, set the sewage treatment aside. This kind of approach of finding and identifying the characteristics of a problem, finding the decision makers most impacted by the problem, and then who impacts or influences the decision makers. Then doing a specific direct marketing campaign to these individuals. So instead of being on billboards, instead of being on social media, you're specifically in front of decision makers, especially those who have influence in the marketplace. And then finally, delivering a solution from a consultative approach. Don't assume that they need methane digestion. They may have other needs for waste to energy solutions. Don't assume that they want the sewage treatment plant this year. Maybe they want a school upgrade. Maybe they want a solar system. They're not sold on waste to energy. They want a solar system this year. But guess what? You're the company that can do it because you've been in there. You've been recommended. Now, this consortium is a whole different thing. If you got questions about the consortium and why we're setting up this joint venture and how it positions you differently, that's fine. Call my offices. Visit us at www.commercialelectricalprofits.com and ask your questions about that. The key of what I've shared with you right now in this 15-minute program will transform your business because it's about not waiting for someone to put out an RFP. It's about going straight to the people and then going to what influences the people. It's about leveraging public relations in the local newspapers for the areas that you're targeting. And see, you're not targeting the ground fault outlet replacement in a regular home. You're not even targeting affluent customers. But by the way, I can show you how this program will put you in front of affluent customers who make decisions about commercial buildings, who make decisions about larger homes. But it's not like we'll do any job, big or small. You're going right after the biggest job in town, and you're letting them say, look, we're not ready for that, but we got this other thing. You're going right for the biggest job in town, and you're building out the relationships and mapping out decision makers. And frankly, this is what I did to help C-Systems LLC back in the day go from $400,000 a year to about $1.8 million in about 6 months of effort. We targeted the 1,200 people, took a database, narrowed it down, targeted the 1,200 people who could hire him in the region that he was in, and we essentially direct marketed to these individuals, sent materials directly to decision makers, arranged meetings, put the business development people in the right place at the right time, and lined up a backlog of contracts. By the time we had received that $1.8 million, he had $7 million in backlog for his business. Now, they eventually went on to do about $22 million, but that original database of contacts spawned off all kinds of growth. And in fact, it was enough growth that at times it was a problem. Like, for example, going from 25 employees to 70 employees. But these are problems that are good to have. Money in the bank, need to hire more people. That's a great problem. That's something you can deal with. Now, let's solve the problem of these municipalities. Let's go in there and find electrical generation solutions. This same example could have been done with towns with hydroelectric dams older than a certain age. Now, yes, there's some list development and some mining that you might need to do. That's what my organization does as a business development consultant. But ultimately, take away the basis there. Are you finding problems and educating decision makers about those problems? Are you working with the influences of those decision makers across an organization or across the community? And finally, are you going in with a consultative approach, or are you prescribing without any diagnosis? I'm Justin Hitt with Commercial Electrical Profits. If you've got any questions about this or any other program, visit me at www.commercialelectricalprofits.com. And if you've got a question about this joint venture that we're putting together, contact my office, ask your question in the form below, and somebody on my team will get back to you. This is just one example of the powerful ways that you can take your business from $1 million a year, from $10 million a year, to dominating your region. And it's so powerful that a lot of people miss it, because when you see it in implementation, it actually costs less than what you're doing now. So the bottom line is, folks, I'm Justin Hitt with Commercial Electrical Profits, and I've just shared with you a simple system that takes you in for the bigger deals, for the larger contracts. It shortens your sales cycles. It helps you get the results for the customers that can pay, and you win. Thanks for listening.